Launch 14, live here at the Guiana Space Centre. The next two satellites in Europe's Galileo satellite navigation constellation are on their journey. 2 hours, 5 minutes and 1 second into their journey on their way to their injection point in space. That's the place where we will be dropping them off and delivering them. They need to travel to an altitude just under 23,000 kilometers above our planet. They have been climbing and climbing. Right now they are 18,397 kilometers up and climbing even higher. You can see the altitude on the bottom right of your screen. At the moment we're in what we call a ballistic phase. We are coasting without the engine as we climb to that orbit. We're going to come back to you. Our commentary will resume at T plus 3 hours and 33 minutes. So 3 hours and 33 minutes after liftoff. The countdown on the top left-hand side of your screen.
Le pilotage est calme, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Fonctionnement nominal de l'APU, le pilotage est calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Le vol se poursuit nominalement. Pilotage calme, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Le vol est nominal, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. poursuite nominale du mode barbecue, le pilotage est calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Les paramètres à bord sont nominaux, le vol se poursuit nominalement. Propulsion nominale de l'APU, les paramètres à bord sont normaux, le vol se poursuit nominalement. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux, le vol se poursuit nominalement. Fonctionnement nominal de l'APU, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Tous les paramètres à bord sont nominaux. Poursuite nominale du mode barbecue, le pilotage est calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Le pilotage est calme, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Pilotage toujours calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Pilotage calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Fonctionnement toujours nominal de l'APU, le pilotage est calme, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Of the next two Galileo satellites in the Europe's Galileo satellite navigation constellation, on their way to their final destination in space, where they will be dropped off by the upper stage of Ariane 6. Right now they are attached, as you can see there, to the upper stage of the Ariane 6 rocket. Two of them, one on each side of the gold structure. Right now we are in a coasting phase, and we are going to be coasting for just under half an hour more, and then getting close to switching us on our engine after that. We will be coming back to you with our live commentary at T plus 3 hours and 33 minutes. That means 3 hours and 33 minutes after liftoff. You can see the countdown there on the top left-hand side of your screen. Right now we are climbing. We have a little bit further to climb. We need to get to just under 23,000 kilometers above our planet. We've been climbing higher and higher into space, and we're nearly there. So please come join us for the next part of our program. We've got lots of exciting things to look forward to. So we will see you back here at T plus 3 hours and 33 minutes.
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux, le vol se poursuit nominalement.
pilotage est calme, tous les paramètres à bord sont nominaux.
Fonctionnement nominal de l'APU, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Fonctionnement nominal de la PU. Pilotage calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Ensuite, du mode barbecue, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Poursuite nominale de la mission, les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Transporting the next two satellites in the Galileo constellation, travelling on board Europe's Ariane 6 rocket. I'm Katie Haswell, and with me still is David Aranzo, our rocket expert from Arianespace. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us, David. It's very valuable.
Thank you. Good to be here. Yeah.
So, Ariane 6 lifted off from the pad just after 2 o'clock local time. That was 3 hours and 37 minutes ago. You saw those beautiful shots there of the liftoff. It was quite stunning. From the European spaceport here in French Guiana, everything performed like clockwork. David, remind us what happened.
So yeah, we had a great liftoff a few hours ago. We had the first part of the flight with the booster flight, and then the opening of the fairing once we got out of the atmosphere. We continued for 8 minutes with the propulsion of the main stage, and then we had the separation of the main stage and a first boost of the Vinci upper stage, which lasted 11 minutes, putting us into a long coasting phase that will last 3 hours and 20 minutes altogether. And in just a few seconds, we will have the reignition of the upper stage, putting us into the final orbit.
Indeed, and as you say, we're waiting for the Vinci upper stage to switch its engine back on. But what's actually happening up there in space, David?
Well, right now we're putting the stage. There's a slow rolling of the stage, what we call the barbecue mode, that is turning the stage very slowly, and the stage is now prepared for the ignition.
Allumage Vinci.
And we have confirmation there from the range operations manager that the engine has now been switched on for the second boost. And that's a big moment. It's an important moment. Every switch on and switch off of an engine is important in space. Why do we need to switch the engine back on right now?
So up to now we were on an elliptical orbit with an altitude at 23,000 kilometers, but a low perigee, and now we need to circularize it. And in order to do that, we need to add energy. We need to add about 1 kilometer per second of velocity, and that's why we see the speed increasing now, and it will increase up to 2.6 kilometers per second, and that will mean that we are on the circular orbit. And so it will now last a bit less than 1 additional minute of propulsion.
And the teams who are tracking us are at the New Norcia tracking station. They're collecting the data from the rocket as it flies over. You can just see Australia in the distance, actually. New Norcia is indeed in Australia. And the information is coming through, or the telemetry information coming through on the right-hand side of your screen. The curve is the projected trajectory, and the white cross the actual position of the rocket, and then underneath that you've got the altitude, the distance from the pad, and our speed, vitesse in French.
Extinction Vinci.
And the range operations manager has now confirmed the switching off of the upper stage engine for its second switch off, which means we are now in what we call the ballistic phase, the second ballistic phase, coasting without the engine. And the range operations manager telling us that everything's going nominally. Now, as space threats grow more sophisticated, Europe needs to be robust, not just for now, but also for the future. And at the heart of this effort is a vital agency, the independent EU Space Security Accreditation Board. Since 2010, they have been approving the standards. that keep Europe's satellites and space services secure. And I'm delighted to say that joining me now is the chairman of the Security Accreditation Board, Philippe Bertrand. Philippe, thank you very much indeed for coming up to join us. I believe you watched the beginning, you watched the launch from quite close up.
Yes, we were in Toucan. It was really nice. It was a fantastic launch.
Yeah, nice to see it with your own eyes rather than on the screens. Philippe, tell us, what is the role of the Security Accreditation Board in general, and also specifically for Launch 14, for this launch?
The EU Space Security Accreditation Board is the security accreditation authority of all the EU Space Program components. Galileo, EGNOS used by civil aviation, Copernicus devoted to Earth observation, Space Situation Tracking, and the satellite component, GovSatcom and IRIS². Within the Security Accreditation Board, the member states make accreditation decisions independently of Commission, EUSPA, and the European Space Agency. To prepare this campaign, we define the security measures to be put into place, and we have had a dedicated team here in Kourou working on a daily basis with the European Space Agency. As always, the cooperation has been excellent, and we have been in positions to authorize the launch 2 days ago.
And once the satellites are on their orbit, what's the role of the SAB towards the Galileo services? And also, how do you actually work to address the threats?
This evening, in fact, we launched 2 satellites to integrate the Galileo constellation. But the ultimate goal of the program is to provide services to the government or to the citizens. One famous service, Galileo service, is the public regulated service. It is the most secure service of Galileo with encrypted signals. And to prepare the authorizations to enter into operation, hopefully by next year, we perform a lot of audits on cyber penetration tests. And to do that, we have a team of cyber experts in charge to prepare cyber attack on Galileo. And when we launch the cyber attack on Galileo, we evaluate the robustness of the system on the operator to respond appropriately and maintain the service. When we have done all those evaluations, it is our duty at Security Accreditation Board to authorize the service declaration. So it would be a great objective and a great achievement for the program to have the public regulated service entering into operation in 2026. We work for that.
Oh, good. And why is security so critical for Galileo?
Alors Galileo, it's a strategic program. It's the European autonomy for position, navigation and timing. And we know that we are in a difficult geopolitical context where EU is regularly under attack. And the more Galileo will be used for critical application, the more Galileo will be used for defense, the more we may be under attack. And it is the Security Accreditation Board responsibility to ensure ultimately, and in total independence, that the program met the security objective, that we know the risk, and that we are ready to counter the threats. This independence is the cornerstone of the confidence the government and the users may have in the Galileo program. So after this launch, let's continue to work together to ensure we have good services for us all.
Yes, yes, indeed. Well, obviously, really very, very important work that you and the team are doing there, and we're all very grateful for that. Thank you very much, Philippe, for coming to join us. Philippe, back to the flight. Right now, New Norcia is tracking us, as I said. You can see down on the Earth, you can see Australia, Antarctica, and the Earth there in the distance, and the teams at the New Norcia station will be focusing very hard at this point now as we get closer to our separation. And that, as I said earlier, that telemetry information coming in on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see we're 22,931 kilometers high. Now the tracking stations are sending their data, relaying it back here to the Guiana Space Center. We saw the quick look telemetry team earlier. They're actually on a hill outside. He's telling us that everything's going according to plan. That's the voice there of the range operations manager that you can hear. And here they are, the quick look telemetry team. So they're receiving all the information that comes in from the tracking stations, and the range operations manager telling us that we have the beginning here of the orientation maneuver in order to prepare for separation of our satellites. So yes, the telemetry information coming through here to the quick look telemetry team, and they're making a selection and able to cover an awful lot of data coming in from the rocket so that we can hear what's going on up there in space. They then relay that information to the range operations manager. It's a dynamic job. It's a high-powered and pressured environment, incredibly rewarding. It's a small team, but essential to the success of the mission. Everything's going normally. The European Commission is at the helm of the Galileo satellite navigation program, which it owns and manages on behalf of the EU. And while the European Space Agency builds and tests the satellites, and the EU Agency for the Space Program runs daily operations, it's the Commission that provides the political leadership and oversight. In short, the European Commission is very much the backbone of Galileo, guiding Europe's path to secure, sovereign navigation in space. Well, joining me now is the Director for Space Policy, Satellite Navigation and Earth Observation at the European Commission, Christoph Kautz. Christoph, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and switch on your microphone. Christoph, tell us, why is Galileo so important for Europe?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. Yes, why is Galileo so important? I would say there are three main points to be made. First of all, it's very important in terms of strategic autonomy for Europe, being autonomous in terms of satellite navigation. That was the primary purpose of building Galileo, but today I think in the geopolitical environment it's clear that it is crucial to have the strategic autonomy. Second is, it's very important also for the EU's economy. We estimate that 10% of the EU's GDP is enabled by satellite navigation, and it's easy to understand. To go from A to B, to fly a plane, to withdraw money, to synchronize electricity networks, you need satellite navigation signals for that. And the third point is resilience. So in case of crisis, let's say thunderstorms, and the ground-based infrastructure doesn't work anymore, well, satellites will continue to work, and that relates also back to my first point on strategic autonomy.
And yes, so very, very important indeed. But what's the significance then of today's launch?
Well, today's launch is significant, I would say, in two aspects. First of all, because we are showing that we have secured autonomous access to space. I think that's now very clear with this further launch of Ariane 6. And second point, it's very important for the Galileo constellation, because as satellites are aging in space, we need to replenish regularly the constellation, and we are doing this again in an autonomous way thanks to Ariane 6.
And space missions like this require years and years of collaboration, a lot of teamwork, people working hard together, working all over, and lots of different companies. I mean, these kinds of space projects are huge, aren't they? Just give us a little sort of behind the scenes kind of an idea of what's involved in preparing for a launch like this.
Well, in preparing for a launch like this, of course, there are things you could say, this is the boring side, but you have to negotiate contracts, you have to ensure that you have money in your budget to do it. Then once you have ensured that you have money, that you have negotiated the contracts, you need somebody to supervise that all is going in the right direction. But it's not only about, preparing the launch and having the satellites. You have the whole ground segment that has to be in tune with the launch and the satellites. So also you have to ensure that your ground segment is up to date for the launch, and you need somebody to operate the ground segment as well. So you see, there are many things that have to fit together to make this possible. So it all seems, I wouldn't say easy, but it works, but there is a lot behind that.
Sounds like a very complex jigsaw puzzle. And what can we look forward to next in the Galileo program, Christophe?
So I think there are three things. Short term, we will roll out further services. We want to roll out the service specifically for security and defense called Public Regulated Service. We want to roll out a so-called emergency warning service where we can inform population in case of disasters, where the ground-based GSM network doesn't work anymore. So this is more short-term. Medium-term, we are working on Galileo second generation, and we are due to launch, hopefully in 2027, the first second-generation satellites. And more longer-term, we are working on LEO PNT, so low Earth orbit positioning, navigation, and timing. That means putting satellites closer to the Earth, which ensures a more robust signal.
Wow, there's a lot going on then. You're going to be very busy. Christophe Kautz, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. So we are getting ready now, getting closer to the separation of our satellites, and we have to deliver them to very specific, very precise orbits. And you can see that we're on our altitude. We've plateaued out up there on our curve, so we're on the right altitude here, and we're travelling at a fixed speed there, 2.61 kilometres per second. David, just talk us through what's actually happening up here in space, because we're going through a very precise set of orientation manoeuvres, aren't we? I mean, it doesn't look like much is happening, but actually it is.
Yes, the upper stage has been turning very slowly, putting the satellites in the precise orientation needed to perform the separation. And this precise attitude is needed to make sure that the satellites will be moving away in the right direction after separation, away from each other and away from the upper stage. And these maneuvers are now finished, and so the separation will take place in just a minute. The satellites are being separated 300 kilometers below their final operational orbit. So after separation, the satellites will use their own propulsion system to move up to the final position in their operational orbit. The type of trajectory we are doing today is similar to what we do on a geostationary transfer orbit, except this time the launcher, the upper stage, is doing also the injection into the final orbit.
And how does it do that? How are the satellites actually injected or separated from the upper stage?
So we have the hold and release mechanisms that are attaching the satellites to the dispenser, and there will be a pyrotechnic bolt that will be used to detach the satellites, and then springs that will gently push away the satellites.
Good view there of our planet below us, Australia there, and Antarctica in the south. Getting close now, about 8 seconds to the scheduled separation.
Séparation des satellites Galileo FM33 et FM34.
And we have confirmation there of separation of our two satellites. And the parameters on board are all normal. Our two satellites moving gently away from the mothership. As you described there, David, the springs pushing them away. So our two Galileo satellites have separated successfully. They are now on their own, flying free. Galileos 33 and 34 are now scheduled to begin their first steps, stabilizing, orienting themselves, and getting ready to fully wake up. And the teams at the Galileo Control Center in Oberpfaffenhofen in Germany are now following all of these operations closely from the ground. The next big moment will be in approximately 50 minutes when we'll hear how the satellites are getting on. And for now, everything looks to be progressing absolutely according to plan. Now, after that, it will take about 3 months to test and commission the satellites before they are ready to become operational and start their job. And this process of transitioning them from passive cargo to an autonomous spacecraft is called LEOP, Launch and Early Orbit Phase. It's a very important phase. Somebody who knows all about this is Fabio Angelotti, who is Space Segment Leader at the EU. He's just said the passivation is starting. EU Agency for the Space Programme. Fabio, thank you very much indeed for coming to join us. So, Fabio, what's happening up there in space right now?
Thank you, Katie. So, satellites just separated from the launcher. We are now in the LEOP phase, launch and early orbit phase. EUSPA is responsible for this very critical phase of the mission. As we speak, my colleagues at the Galileo Control Center in Oberpfaffenhofen in Germany, together with our industrial partners, Space Opal and OHB and ESA project support team, they are taking command of the satellites. The first step will be to establish a communication with the satellites, and afterwards they will confirm that the satellites have been released in the expected orbit. Following this, there will be a confirmation that the solar arrays have been deployed and they are pointing towards the sun and the attitude of the satellites has been stabilized. Another important check would be that the batteries will be actually recharging. In the coming days, what we'll be doing, we will start testing the main subsystems of the satellites to ensure that they have survived the harsh conditions of the launch. And if everything is nominal, we start moving the satellites into their final target orbital slot. Once we have reached this position, we start another important phase that we call IoT, in-orbit test phase. Only upon successful testing of the payload during the IoT will then confirm the full mission success. And it will be only at that point that we request the EUSPA sub, Security Accreditation Board, for the authorization to include in the operational constellation these 2 new satellites. And in this way, they will contribute actively to enhance the robustness and the reliability of our constellation.
And this phase is really critical, isn't it, for the success of the mission? But why is that?
It is. It is because in a very short period of time, we have different critical operations that we have to carry out. And any cap during these operations may put in danger the mission success. I was mentioning before the establishment of the communication link with the satellites. I was mentioning the deployment of the solar arrays. I was mentioning the pointing of the solar arrays towards the sun, as well as the charging of the batteries. Any anomaly in any of these stages, as I said, can put in danger the mission. Therefore, if there are this type of anomalies, it is very important, it is paramount for the mission success that there are fast decisions and a clear course of actions to recover the anomaly. And this decision needs to be fast, needs to be thorough, and the execution of the set of actions needs to be fast in order to avoid impact on the mission success.
A lot of work.
It is.
A lot of work, a lot of concentration.
Yes.
And once the Galileo satellites have gone through this process, does that mean that EUSPA is then out of the picture, or do you continue?
No, not really, not really. Actually, another important part of our work will start, which is service provision. In fact, as the user-oriented operational agency of the EU space program, EUSPA has the responsibility to ensure that Galileo delivers high-quality, secure, and reliable services 24/7 around the clock. And we do that for the users. We know that today we have more than 4.5 billion users around the world relying on Galileo.
That's a lot of people.
Yes, it is. And it is also our responsibility to ensure that Europeans, both citizens and businesses, they benefit of the investment of the European Union in Galileo as EU sovereign asset for satellite-based navigation.
Well, listen, very best wishes to all of you and to the team, because you've got a big job ahead and a very, very important one. Thank you very
Thank you
much
so
indeed,
much.
Fabio, for coming to chat with us. And best wishes. We're going to take, it's going to take about 40 minutes now for us to, before we expect to hear back from the satellites and hear how they're getting on and go through some of the processes that Fabio was just so wonderfully explaining. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back to you after that. But let me just tell you before we go that when we come back, we're going to be going to Brussels in Europe. The European Commission is hosting a live event at their headquarters in Brussels for the launch of the Galileo satellites. It's called Galileo Launch 14, and we'll be hearing from key players and also from the user community. So it'll be really interesting. I highly recommend that you stick around and watch that. It's going to be really exciting. But for now, do stay with us. We'll be coming back to you in about 34 minutes' time. We'll be back here then. See you then.
Le pilotage est calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux. La passivation se poursuit nominalement. Poursuite nominale de la passivation. Poursuite nominale de la passivation de l'ULPM. poursuite nominalement de la passivation de l'ULPM.
Hello again and welcome back to our live broadcast, Road to Space, Galileo Launch 14. We are coming to you from the Guiana Space Centre, the European spaceport in French Guiana. I'm Katie Haswell, and joining me still is David Iranzo-Graves. David, thank you very much for sticking with us throughout this long night. It's been a long launch. We lifted off from the pad. You saw those beautiful images there of the liftoff just after 2 o'clock here in the morning at the Guiana Space Centre. And you were looking there as well at pictures here of the teams in the Mission Control Centre inside what we call the fishbowl. The operational teams inside that protective glass. And who are we looking at here, David?
So these are the teams of Galileo from ESA and USPA, and they are standing by to get the confirmation on this status of the satellites.
Let's remind everybody what's happened so far.
So we lifted off a bit more than 4.5 hours ago from Kourou. We lifted off we traveled northeast across the Atlantic, 2.5 minutes of flight with the boosters, and then the upper stage continued the propulsion. The fairing separated 1 minute later once we were out of the atmosphere, and we continued with the Vulcan engine propulsion until 7 minutes and 40 seconds. After that, the main stage separated, and we had first ignition of the Vinci upper stage engine, ignition that lasted 11 minutes, putting the launcher into a long coasting phase that lasted 3 hours and 20 minutes. And we then reignited the upper stage for a second short boost of 2 minutes, circularizing the orbit at 23,000 kilometers, and then the Galileo satellites separated from the launcher, and the stage was passivated. And we are now waiting for the final confirmation on the status of the satellites.
Indeed, and as you say, the satellites were separated, injected into space about 40 minutes ago, and at that point the teams at the Galileo Control Centre took control of their new babies. The satellites are now going through a number of crucial operations, and the teams on the ground will be following these operations, no doubt with extreme concentration, David.
Yes, that's right.
And these first minutes and hours are vital for the mission. We're now waiting to hear, as you said, David, for the teams to see how the satellites had been getting on during this phase. So while we wait to hear, David, let's just talk a little bit about the future, because we've got a lot of launches coming up next year, and the next launch is very exciting and very important, isn't it?
Yes, our next launch will take place early next year. It will be a very important launch for us because it will be the first Ariane 64 launch, so the version of Ariane 6 with 4 boosters. This will mean a significant increase in launcher performance. So adding flexibility, we will be able to deliver more than 20 tons to a low Earth orbit, and a configuration that will allow Ariane 6 to deliver satellites also to multiple orbits. And it's an ideal launcher version for launching large constellations. This will also integrate for the first time a long fairing, allowing a larger capacity in terms of volume as well.
And one of those constellations, of course, is Amazon Leo, which will be the next launch. Some very, very important passengers there.
Yes, this first Ariane 64 launch will carry the first batch of Amazon Leo satellites launched by Arianespace. There will be 32 satellites on board. Amazon Leo is, of course, the large Amazon constellation being deployed to provide wideband communications around the world. And the Amazon Leo satellites for this first launch are already here on the launch site in French Guiana, and they are being ready for the launch. And the launcher elements for this Ariane 64 launch are now being picked up by the Canopée vessel at the different harbors throughout Europe. The boat was in Bordeaux a few days ago in France, picking up the booster elements. It is now arrived in Bremen, Germany, to pick up the upper stage of the launcher. And just before Christmas, the boat will do a last stop in Le Havre, in France, to pick up the main stage. And then it will cross the Atlantic, arriving in Kourou at the beginning of January.
And it's a very important boat, Canopée. It's been designed specifically to transport the sections of the Ariane 6 rocket. And it's a very exciting boat because it's got sails, it's got masts and sails. So it uses hybrid propulsion in order to reduce emissions. And I think a lot of shipping companies will be taking some inspiration from that, setting trends here in the space industry. Just a reminder that we're waiting to hear from the status of the satellites, and looking here at the teams in the Mission Control Center at the Guiana Spaceport inside the fishbowl. The fishbowl is our pet name, if you like, for the protective glass there containing the operational teams. And then on the outside of the glass, you can see the invited guests who are watching the launch today. So, David, let's chat a little bit about what else is coming up next. It's going to be a very busy year, isn't it?
Yes, our launch rate next year will be picking up. And the objective is to reach, of course, in the coming years, our full operational launch rate of 9 to 10 launches per year. And we will have another important event for us next year, which will be the introduction of our Ariane 6 Block 2 configuration. This Block 2 configuration will introduce several launcher improvements to further increase the performance. The main improvement will be the larger solid boosters. We will be adding around 15 tons of additional solid propellant in each booster. And actually, these new boosters were one of these new boosters was fire tested here in Kourou last April, and we should have these boosters flying on Ariane 6 around mid-26.
Operational teams here in the Mission Control Center. It's been a very busy time. We've had 3 launches, David, haven't we, in the space of a couple of months before Christmas. So it's and of course it just proves that it's possible to be preparing several different launches at the base at the same time.
Yes, that's right. Arianespace has had a few launches. We had the last Ariane 6 launch beginning of November. We had a Vega C launch end of November, and then now we are mid-December. So yeah, we've had a busy end of the year.
Just a reminder that we lifted off from the pad just after 2 o'clock in the morning here at the Guiana Space Center with our 2 Galileo satellites attached to the top of our rocket, our Ariane 6 rocket, the 5th Ariane 6 rocket to lift off from the pad here at the Guiana Space Center, where it's had an entirely new launch pad and launch zone, dedicated launch zone built for it.
Yes, that's right. A full new launch zone that was built between the.
Succès du lancement confirmé.
Now we have confirmation there that we have, as we can translate from the range operations manager, success of the launch. So that's very good news. We are looking at some very happy faces here, David, in the Mission Control Center.
Yes, indeed. All the teams are now relieved, meaning that the satellite has been contacted. The satellites have been contacted, are in good health.
So the satellites have gone through their first few operations. They've had to open their solar panels, call home, tell everybody how they're doing, and the teams in the control center have been following those. Now, this has been a long night, it's been a long launch. The satellites had a long journey. They had to travel very high up into space, didn't they?
Yes, that's right. It's been a long mission, but a successful one.
And a nice pre-Christmas success. Everybody congratulating each other here in the fishbowl. The satellites on their orbits doing what they're supposed to be doing. Waiting now, hopefully, to hear from Caroline Arnoux, who is the head of the Ariane business unit. And she will be giving us a little bit more information. In the meantime, I can see some big smiles there here in the fishbowl. Let's go over now to Caroline. Caroline, well, this is very good news, isn't it?
Yes, very good news indeed. Today, Ariane 6 successful flight marks a new step in Europe's independent access to space. Ariane 6 perfectly placed the two Galileo satellites into orbit in the frame of its very first launch dedicated to Galileo program, the Europe's own navigation satellites, benefiting to billions of users all over the world. The news are excellent today. The launch is, of course, fully successful. The injection accuracy is perfect, and we have been informed by the customer that both satellites are transmitting telemetry nominally, and that the solar arrays have been deployed successfully. So excellent news today, and I have a warm thank for Arianespace and Ariane Group teams who have demonstrated once again their operational excellence. I'm also very grateful for the continued trust placed in Arianespace by your partners, ESA, European Commission and USPA. This year, 2025, has been for Arianespace a very dynamic year with 7 successful launches, 4 Ariane 6 and 3 Vega C. Following this incredible year for Ariane 6, we are targeting many more Ariane 6 launches ahead. So go Ariane 6 and follow us next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Caroline. So it's been a great launch. As you said there, flawless liftoff, followed by confirmation of separation of both satellites and that they were injected onto their correct orbit. Our 2 spacecraft are now sending telemetry home. That's the range operations manager announcing the family photograph for the teams. And the solar arrays are deployed. They're now travelling on their own to their operational orbit, 23,222 kilometres up, and they're going to be spending the coming months doing their launch and early orbit phase. So, an important day for Europe. An important day for independence in space. We are now going to go hand over to Brussels. The EC, as I said earlier, is hosting an event at their headquarters for the successful launch tonight. It's called Galileo Launch 14. It's hosted by Alex Cadier. They'll be meeting key players, and it's really, really going to be exciting to hear from them. So a lot to look forward to. Before we sign off, I would like to say a huge thank you to you, David, for joining us. It's always such a pleasure to have you in the commentary box. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. It was great.
So we would like to say congratulations. We are going to sign off and say goodbye from David and from me, but we are going to hand you over now to Alex and Galileo Launch 14.